is Iannielli, and I'm a male to female transgender girl, and I'm on YouTube. I enjoy doing videos, and I'm trying to get better at them. It takes time, but I'm going to try to focus on projects in my videos, make them more project oriented with several topics in mind. My focus is concentrating on the male to female transgender segment within the transgender community. I've identified as a girl all my life, basically. I've been cross-dressing since the age of 3, and I've been, going through so many feelings all throughout my life. I struggle with depression. I struggle with suicidal thinking. I never told people, my family, I never spoke to my parents about my situation. And I find that it's very sad when you hear that another transgender person, and in many cases only young teenagers, commit suicide. And I know, growing up myself personally, that I also had thought about suicide. I was only 16 at the time, and I was going through a rough time. I was going through puberty. I was dealing with my gender struggle. I knew from an early age that I had felt different from typical boys. I knew I was drawn to wearing girls' clothing at a very young age. I was only 3 years old when I tried on my sister's dress, and from that point on I've basically been dressing all my life, and I just felt natural dressing up. It was one of my favorite times, and I just knew in my heart that I was born the wrong way, and I couldn't express it to people. I didn't know how to talk or handle my situation. I went to a Catholic school, and the rules and regulations were very strict, and I had to wear a uniform. I wore pants, pants, a jacket, shirt, and tie, and the girls wore rompers with a blouse and skirt. And I remember wanting to dress like the girls, and I knew that I wasn't ever going to be able to do that. So the only times that I felt true happiness was when I was able to dress at home, but that was always secretly in private. So I never really had the opportunity to express my true gender identity with my family, and it was tough. Growing up was very difficult. I tried to fit in with the boys and do kind of boyish things, so to speak, but deep down in my heart I knew that I was really female, and wanted to live the life of a girl. I just felt so at odds with myself and so lost, and I just couldn't understand why I had these inner feelings. It was very, very frustrating to me. And all I know is that at some point I knew I would have to make a choice. Just like choices that I had to make when I was a student in school. I knew down the road, one day, I would have to confront my gender issues. And it's not an easy thing to deal with. Being transgender is very hard, and there's a very good likelihood that a lot of transgender individuals struggle with depression. They've attempted suicide. Um, it's very sad. It's a very sad situation. And a lot of the reasons are because a lot of society don't accept us as normal people. They look at us as strange and weird and not fitting in, and they just don't. They don't figure. They can't understand where we're coming from, and to me that's a shame, because in reality, we're just normal people who just have a different way of expressing who we truly are, and I understand it because I live it every day. I lived it all my life. And when I was 3, I didn't know what I was struggling with. All I knew was I wanted to be a girl. I wanted to wear what the girls wore. I enjoyed that. It was important to me. And it was very important that I dealt with that. And the only way I could was by putting on a dress. And when I did, I felt happy. It was very emotionally exciting for me. And I thought, you know, at one point or another that I would be able to tell someone, but it took me a very long time. What does transgender mean? Gender identity, gender dysphoria, male to female transgender, female to male transgender. Transgender is a term that encompasses a spectrum of people, and it ranges from people who just cross-dress. Typically, cross-dressers are men who enjoy wearing women's clothes, but it's not for anything more than their pleasure, and to most likely relieve stress in their life. They don't want to be women. They don't identify as women. They just want to dress and feel feminine. But typically they're normal, heterosexual men who have families, wives and children, and they just do this for fun. And then on this side of the spectrum, you have transsexuals, and they are very difficult to understand, because not many people can understand what it's like for a person born a certain sex to identify as the opposite gender. But essentially a transsexual is, in the case of someone born male, is a man, a boy, who identifies as a woman or a girl, and they want to change their bodies and use hormones, female hormones, and testosterone blockers, and also in many cases they want to do the gender reassignment surgery. Now in my case, I've always known that I was a lot more than just a cross-dresser. I'm on this side of the spectrum. I'm actually male to female transgender, and I would definitely consider myself transsexual. I am on hormones. I take estradiol and spironolactone and Provera, and I I also want to have gender reassignment surgery. I would like that in my future. And I've known that I was a transsexual from the age of 14 on. I was very interested in reading about male to female transsexuals and what life was like for them, and the whole process of transitioning. I found that I definitely could relate to that. So I used to go to the library many times and read about it, and when I read it, I knew right away that that was who I was inside. And the cross-dressing was just a component of me being expressive of my gender identity. I knew that that was who I really was inside, and I wasn't going to change. There were times when I tried to stop the cross-dressing, and I purged. I purged many times. Purging means that you get rid of your clothes, hoping that that will change you, but it never does. What it does do is makes you upset because you got rid of all the clothes that you enjoyed wearing, and you only repeat the cycle of buying more clothes. So I definitely don't recommend purging because it doesn't work. There were periods of time when I had stopped cross-dressing because it was just very difficult for me, and I just tried to live my life as best I could in the male gender role, and I never had problems though with perception. People always perceived me to be male. They never thought that I was a transgender person, nor did they ever think I was gay, which I'm not. But I always knew that I was transgender. I knew from my teenage years when I understood what it was, and I didn't know how to express it, and I couldn't tell my parents or my anyone for that matter. I didn't know how to express it. I think today kids have more choices. They can definitely open up to their families, and hopefully so. I think it's much better, to be honest with you, if kids can open up about their gender identity and talk to their family. It's very sad when a child who is struggling with their gender identity seeks help from their parents and their parents reject them. That's very tragic, and it could lead to very serious consequences. And real life instances are, just to name one specifically in the most recent weeks, is Leila Alcorn, where she came out and wanted to live as a girl. She was born a boy, and her parents tried to have her given therapy to change her thinking, and it only made her more depressed, and eventually she couldn't take it anymore, so she sadly committed suicide. And it's just unfortunate that so many people, even families of the transgender individual, just don't understand it. And I don't know why people have a hard time with being transgender, because if you think about it, I always found girls to be beautiful, very pretty, They wore lovely clothes, and they were very, I loved the way they presented themselves. I loved the way they talked. I loved the way they dressed and the way they walked and carried themselves. I was very drawn to that. And that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be like that. I wanted to be expressive of my femininity. I wanted to be pretty and style my hair and wear pretty shoes with bows and wear stockings and a pretty dress. I wanted all of that, and I wanted to hang out with the girls and just have that kind of a life. And I never felt happy as a boy. I never could relate. I never liked the clothes. It was horrible. I couldn't find any joy in getting to wear boys' clothes. When we went shopping, I hated it. But if you put me in the girls' department, I was delighted. I was overjoyed. I would spend hours there if I could. And it was just something that I was born with, something I knew. And I just don't understand why people have such a hard time with it. It doesn't make sense to me. And I think a lot more compassion should be, and support should be the way to help someone going through that. You should have a understanding and being empathetic to the individual. You shouldn't condemn them for how they want to be or how they feel they should express themselves. That's just not right, and it's not fair. And these tragedies that happen could be prevented if people understood and really made an effort to accept and to embrace the person. Transgender people are good people, and they have just as much a right to be happy as anybody else. And a lot of transgender people are very smart. You have people that study engineering, medical science, anything that you can think of. You know, transgender crosses all walks of life. And I think that the fear that a lot of people have with trying to understand someone who's transgender is the notion that their own sexuality comes into question. This is especially so in a relationship. I think the most difficult thing, aside from actually accepting that you're transgender and deciding to transition, is establishing relationships. For transgender women, it is much more difficult to have a typical, normal sexual life if they're pre-operative, which I am, obviously, because if you're interested in the opposite sex, in the case of trans women, the opposite sex obviously would be men. And there are some men out there that accept trans women fully and want to have relations with them, and even if they're pre-operative. But for the most part, men don't feel comfortable with the trans woman because they feel that it's questioning their own sexuality. They feel that they're really uh, having a relationship with a man, and that's really not the case, because in actuality a trans woman is really a woman, but unfortunately uh, she was born male, which isn't the right sex designation for that person. And so relationships are definitely very complicated for trans women, and you have to be very careful, because you really don't know how men are going to react to your gender situation. Um, I am not really interested in that aspect of life. I'm already with my own family, and that's really what my focus is on, keeping my family and being there for my son. That's my main focus. I want to be there. I'm the dad to my son. I always will be, even though I'm transitioning to become a woman. And I'm lucky that my son accepts me. Um, my wife is very, it's very difficult for her, and we've had a lot of struggle with that, but I am only trying to be who I am, and identify to be the person that I felt I always was. And it's frustrating, but I'm happier. The only thing is, I have my bands, these, and I keep them as a reminder. You may be curious when you see my videos why I wear these, and this is because I had a suicide attempt, and I wear them to remind me that I need to focus on living and being happy, and suicide is a final act, and it's very serious, and you should never come to that point in your life where you wish to or want to commit suicide. I'm going to tell you the truth, that suicide has entered into my mind on several occasions, and it's very hard to deal with. I am bipolar. I've struggled with depression all my life. I'm transgender. I struggled with transgender all my life. I've come from a family where alcoholism was a part of the family heritage. Depression, manic depression, bipolar disorder was part of the family heritage. So I have to be especially careful. And when I do have thoughts of suicide, I have to really rein those thoughts in and not think like that. I've gotten into trouble many times where I said something to that point, because I have financial difficulties. So on the phone I said, if I can't pay my mortgage and we're going to be homeless, then the only way I can save the house for my family and keep them safe from living homeless is to commit suicide so they get my life insurance. And I say these things on the phone because that's the reality, because I don't have that miracle that I can pull out of the hat the money that I need to pay my mortgage. And then before I know it, the police are at my door and I wind up in the hospital. And I've been in the hospital many times, and I'm tired of it. But I also have to realize that I have to be careful what I say. But the reality is that depression and suicide feelings for transgender people is very real. And that's why I wear these bands, to remind me that I have to be careful. In reality, I don't want to commit suicide. I want to live. I want to be happy. I want to be a woman. You know, why would I go through a transition only to take my life? That doesn't make sense. I don't want to do that. I have a son who needs me. My son is autistic. He's 16. He's my pride and joy. I love my son. I want to do everything I possibly can for him. So, if you're curious why I wear these bands, I was in the hospital like a week and a half before Christmas, and I had done a video on YouTube where I stated that I wanted to end my pain and commit suicide, which was a pretty stupid thing to do in retrospect. But luckily somebody out there saw my video and they was concerned, they were worried. So I did it at nighttime, probably like around 2 a.m. and posted the video on my Facebook page, and then I went to bed. And then like at 9:30 in the morning, there were a heavy banging, knocking on my door, and I ran out of my bed and I opened the door and there were police at my door, and then I figured, oh no, they saw that somebody must have told them, and I wound up in the hospital for a week. So it's a real struggle. It's very hard for average typical people to understand where a transgender person is coming from. But the thoughts of suicide is very real, and it's very painful. And I've come across other transgender girls who sadly committed suicide, and I only found out after the fact. I know in 2 instances already where I came to find their channels. I think in one case the channel has been closed or shut down, but they were male to female transgender, and I think in their videos they also discussed about being depressed and having thoughts of suicide, and it's just very sad that they actually committed suicide. So you really have to seek help if you're really that down and you have those kind of thoughts. It's very scary and it's a very serious issue. I take antidepressants. I'm on Zoloft. I take Depakote for my mood disorder. I take Seroquel, and then I'm taking my hormones. Obviously, I take estradiol, which is an estrogen, and spironolactone, which is a testosterone blocker, and I take progesterone, which is another female hormone pill, and I have to get my blood monitored on a regular basis because all these medications can affect my liver and my body. So it's serious stuff. But you know, all I know is that